Boom, we are live, ladies and gentlemen. See with the Arcane Bear, thank you so much for joining us. You're probably wondering where I've been for the last 2 weeks. I was on a little birthday vacation dance retreat. I had the most amazing time. I'm going to be updating all the private members. I started working on a more personal update this time, looking at the road ahead. We've got a lot of things right over the last 5 years of doing this, but we've also got some things wrong. And obviously, I think it's important to address those, both the positives and the negatives. So as we dive in today, you are going to see Bitcoin on the chart, this beautiful accumulation channel that's taking place, and the important things that have been happening now. We had a big LPS while I was gone, all the way back down to 19,500. I'm sure a lot of people were freaking out at that moment and probably weren't super happy. Now, in the private group, one of our good Bear family members is watching this top trend line. Now, I think personally, when you have such strong indications, like the first move outside in the beginning of January here, and this second move up, these are both extremely strong signs that we have changed the character into a bull market. Now, this is not a bull market like we saw when Bitcoin went to $60,000, but this is a bull market within the trading range. So for me, ultimately, I think pretty clearly now we are headed up to around $40,000. Now, again, the first area I'm looking for is obviously this $28,000 to $30,000 area. I thought we would hit there much quicker than we did, but as always, I seem to underestimate the amount of leverage that people use. I guess I should never let that go. But there are some great signs here, again, encouraging us that this is a bullish indication. First off, we have rised significantly higher off of this limited amount of supply. So just I want to point this out. This supply here has created a massive move up. Now, I generally don't like to do this, but I'm going to show some candlesticks here for a second as well. In traditional market sentiments, this is what's known as three green soldiers. These are bullish reversals. That means that this bottom point here, which looks like a spinning doji, followed by the three soldiers, is extremely bullish in traditional markets. Now, I try not to use traditional market sentiments within this ecosystem because it moves so quickly and there's a large paramount of change. But the other important part here, again, is the supply signature. Here we had three bullish soldiers, and we saw an SOS peak out. And again, here, I believe this was the last point of supply. I don't think we're going to come back down this low for the next 6 months. We might come back down to $18,000 in the latter part of the year just to retest this area, much as we did between after 2019 when we went from from $3,000 to $13,000 all the way back down to $3,000 over the course of that year. But the fact the RSI is just about to break out on the daily, and that we are getting significantly more price action to the upside based off limited supply. So again, you'll note that the initial supply signature over here brought us approximately 25%, but here we have less supply coming in and a 35% move to the upside. This is screaming bullish. There's nothing in this chart to me to suggest that we're going to come lower. Now, I don't like to argue with anyone. I hope you all have different opinions than me. It's what makes the world interesting. It would be boring if we all just agreed for agreement's sake. So what I want to do here is go back and underline the thesis. The reason why I like these trading ranges is because they can really help us identify when the character has changed and when we should change our estimate of what that character means. So when we have this large spring, and this is so important to also compare here, the initial spring here, the amount of supply that came in is significant, and the reduction in the price here is not. So again, what you do is you compare the previous primary support, bam, the supply line here, and the spring. This is the reduction in price spread, but equal supply coming into the market-ish. That's a change of character into itself. The second strong change of character happened here when we moved up throughout the market. And again, it's only defined this even further in my mind that the bullish indication is taking place. Now again, I don't think we're going to new all-time highs for Bitcoin on this particular move, but I do believe it is going to be enough to get us up to the $45,000 area. And I do suspect this is kind of my long term. I'm just going to draw this out of the long term. I think what we'll see is something around 45,000, boom, 36,000, boom. We'll come back down to test this range. We'll make another high up here. And then this is where you'll see the ultimate kind of finality of this trading range and potentially up to new highs over the course of the next year or two. And this is what we saw with Bitcoin previously, is that you had the bottom of the selling climax around $3,500 end up being a trading range into itself. So I suspect nothing different here will take place. Although it won't be identical, it rhymes pretty well. So I want to take a look at a few of the other market indicators that lead me to this bullish sentiment. We're going to scroll all the way down here to, wow, so many things happened while I was gone this week. I'm going to start here though. I'm going to start with SPY. So we already had a big trend change within the S&P 500 over the last little while, and we've now broken back above this long-term descending trend line. So we broke below it for a second, touched as part of the backup phase, and we've now very swiftly moved back up. If this were bearish, I don't believe we would have moved back up this week. So we have inflation down at 6%. We have banks that have effectively collapsed due to poor monetary decisions by, well, themselves, and the fact that they are promised some sort of regularity within their T-bills is a whole other conversation. But ultimately, this move this week, to me, solidifies and cements my position that we are about to enter a temporary bull market. For the S&P 500, I do believe we're going to move all the way back to the top of the box. And I believe we're going to go up and down between the top of the box here, probably for the next year or two. So what I suspect will happen, very similar to Bitcoin, we're going to break out, we're going to come all the way, touch the top here, and then come all the way back down. And we'll do this again to form a much larger trading range within this sequence. Now, could it be distributional and we come back down way lower? Sure, why not? It seems like there's criminals in charge of the US government, and until we fix that, I don't see why we should expect anything positive. We should just expect criminal behavior. Now, that's not always the most optimistic sign of things, but what can you do? This is the world that we live in today. The other thing that was pushing me in this direction was the current change of character in the dollar as well. So some of you had pointed out in the private bear group, this here, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so you can see. We had bearish divergence on the top, on the 4-hour, and here. So you had rising price, lower RSI. Now we've bottomed out for the dollar at the moment. So it's likely we're going to see some test here on both the SPY and Bitcoin effectively. But if we get a little bit closer of a look here on the 1-hour, we do have higher, well, again, it's a little bit more difficult on the, let's see if we got anything on the 6-hour that looks clean. Okay, no divergence on the 6-hour that's clean aside from the bearish divergence. So because that divergence just took place, I do suspect that we go lower. How much lower? It probably retests this 102 point pretty easily. But if we start to come back down near 100, we might see a pivot in the Fed here still as well. We know the inflation rate, but we don't know what their current estimates for rate cuts. The futures markets are already seemingly factoring in the removal of the rate cuts temporarily to help ease some of the stress on the banking system, although it looks pretty clear that the government is actually trying to basically attack the crypto system by removing a lot of the fiat on and off ramps. The other thing I thought that was interesting here would be to look at, again, the US, so US inflation rate has dropped to 6% here, all the way back down from 9.2. We see a pretty constant decline, and the Fed's fund rate here is at 4.57. Now, we have no indications that this has changed yet, but again, if you were in the private group, the futures of the Fed's fund rate has already started to price in either the removal of the rate hikes or even a reduction in the rate hike itself. So it'll be good to keep an eye on that, but at this moment, because of all of these changes, the other important thing to do would be to look at the weekly or the monthly. So on the weekly here for Bitcoin, let's get rid of our chart drawings just so it's a bit clear. We've just started to turn up on the RSI and bounced off that 50 point very strongly. I do suspect that this means we are going to have a continued week into the move of the upside into the oversold territory on the weekly, and then into this $30,000 pretty clearly early on, and then probably somewhere around $40,000 to $45,000 before coming all the way back down and retesting this area. Some of you had asked me to take a look at our favorites like Gala Games. Again, here on the weekly, we come back all the way down and we're just about to break over the 50 point. There are strong indications that we're going to see some movement up here. Now, I believe we have some hidden divergence here as well on the price points too. We've broken above this downward trend line. We've moved up with some serious oomph and off very limited supply, as you can see, compared to the initial sense. If we get any strong buying coming into Gala Games here, Ape, and the rest of the ecosystem, you're going to see this move up with strong conviction. On the daily, we've totally reset the RSI effectively as well for both Gala Games and Ape Token, and across the board for our gaming investments, the RSI has basically been totally reset. So although there's always reason to be cautious, to make sure that you're adjusting your risk to reward benefits based off where we are in the market today, these strong moves to the upside only speak of a bullish change of character within the market that we have not seen in over 18 months. So just for example, I want to remind you that for Gala Games here, we have not seen a single move to the upside in over 400 days. That's an extraordinary amount of time within the markets. So to see on the daily our first break back above the 50 with strength and conviction again, there's no reason in my mind to think that we're going to be coming lower. In fact, we're probably going to be going higher. I think we will get that 1.2 or 12 cent area that we were looking for. A little bit slower than I thought, but that's what the market does. I guess for the future part that I would like to remind myself of is that there's a shit ton more leverage in this ecosystem than when I first started, and I need to try to take that into account. When we first started buying Bitcoin at $200, there was no leverage, and it was a different game. Here, the volatility is from the leverage, it's from these big players, so it's important to keep that in mind. Now, again, there is an argument to say that this is an upthrust after distribution. So ultimately here, on Bitcoin, the most dangerous thing that we could see now would be something like this, where we get back into the $29,000 range and we come back down below here. If we come back down below here, oh my God, we could go way freaking lower if this is a distributional trading range. If we took 230 days to create a distributional trading range, that would be horrendous. We could see some really abstract lows here. I don't believe that's the case. And again, the reason I don't believe that's the case is just such strong conviction to the upside, massive spot buying on Coinbase. These are big plays. And I think that when you see that, the hardest part is to get over the bearish change that we've been through for the last 18 months or 400 days and go, great. The last 60 days have been bullish. I'm going to stick by that narrative. And again, for Bitcoin on the daily here, the RSI is just about to peak out into the 68 point area, which will suggest we go up again with ease and vigor based both off the supply and the price spread of where we are. Anyways, I was gone for about 2 weeks. I appreciate you all. Thank you for being patient. We've got a podcast with Karel Wong from the Magic and Treasure DAO ecosystem right after this video. So if you're done watching, make sure you give us a like. Leave your thoughts, your questions, your comments. You're probably wondering why I didn't go live. And again, I was just having a birthday week. Maybe I should have done a better job of informing you guys. But hey, happy birthday, me. I can't thank you all enough. I hope you've had a wonderful 2 weeks while I was gone, and that you didn't weak paper hand sell great positions. Anyways, Theo the Arcane Bear. We'll see you guys again on the next episode.